It was an explosive start to the Santos Tour Down Under.
What a sprint finish!
And it was that man, Andre Greipel, who blew away all in his path to go back-to-back.
As Greipel goes for win number 12 historically, look at the distance here.
I have the best guys on my side.
Next up, it's stage 2, and it presents a new challenge to the riders.
I think everyone's a little bit tentative about corkscrew.
I like a hard climb and an easy descent, and that seems to fit pretty perfectly.
The run into town is going to be very explosive, and guys are going to want to make it stick.
It looks like it's good for me, so if I have the legs, I will be there.
We're going to go for it.
Is this the stage that shapes the 2013 Santos Tour Down Under?
Yeah, somebody's gone down in the middle. Goss is clear and Greipel is on his wheel. Cameron Meyer at 23 years of age. They've got him 1-2 on the line.
Hello and welcome to Channel 9's Wide World of Sports. Beautiful weather again here in South Australia for stage 2 of the Santos Tour Down Under. Of course, this one is the Hahn Superdry stage 2. Yesterday, a whole set of challenges. Today, they change again. We have Corkscrew Hill ahead of us. Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin. That changes everything.
It changes everything. We won't see a sprint win today, I'm certain of that. Andre Greipel, who's in the lead after that brilliant win yesterday, he'll take a back seat now. But that was a very hard sprint yesterday, Tim. And Greipel, yes, he won, he was the sprinter, but the way they came to the line, they left behind a lot of sprinters by up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was a very hard approach to the line with the team from Spain, Movistar, putting a lot of pressure on. But Andre Greipel's team never panicked at all. They knew what they had to do. They delivered him to the right place at the right time to get himself a well-earned stage victory.
He won't be winning this stage. It's so vastly different, isn't it?
It is. It's shorter as well, 116 kilometres. We go from Mount Barker as the crow flies. We're only a few kilometres away from the finishing line here in Rostrevor. But they come over the top of the Corkscrew Hill, just 7 kilometres from the finish. They will fly downhill. They will come into the finishing line today between 90 and 100 kilometres an hour.
Yes, you know, those Tour Down Under, we've had to wait till the Saturday, Old Wollonga Hill, to find out the decider and who was trying to win this bike race overall. Today, if you want to win the Santos Tour Down Under, you have to come out and play. There'll be a different set of names that will come to the front of the pack. Simon Gerrans, well, he's ready for it because we saw him pop out of the pack yesterday. And your cousin, Philippe Gilbert from Belgium.
Yeah, we spoke last night. Yeah, look, and the other variable, of course, I mentioned the weather being so nice. It is a little warmer as well, so that's another variable at play. We caught up with the riders before the race. Here's what they had to say.
I don't have a crystal ball, but I hope to be with the best at the top of the climb. I'm not far, and then yeah, the descent is a little bit technical at the beginning, so I'm not bad in this. This thing.
It's a really steep climb, not so long, but steep and hard, and definitely it's gonna be a lot of guys drop there, and I think maybe we'll have my feeling is we're gonna have a sprint of 20 guys maybe today.
I think the lead up to the climb, probably, I suppose, 1.5 kilometres just before it actually starts, it's going to be the most difficult. I mean, getting over the top's always going to probably split it up a bit, but nonetheless, I think the physically demanding portion of the race will definitely be the lead up to it.
Again, the odd poker face there, not giving much away. Gentlemen, your crystal balls worked yesterday. How are they going to go today?
Well, what they also told us yesterday is we came into Charleston where there were 3 of the Jayco sprints for those small time bonuses, 3 seconds, 2 seconds and 1 second. There were a lot of riders interested in the second place finish there because we had a man in the lead all day in Jordan Kirby. Philippe Gilbert, Paul, and also Simon Gerrans, interested in what? A couple of seconds, but it could make the difference.
Well, they know because this race in the past has always been decided by seconds, and that's why those 2 guys are the guys I expect to see close to the front today. Gerrans, the defending champion, and the world champion, Philippe Gilbert. But watch out for the Spanish team, Movistar, because they were the ones that made the race very, very difficult towards the end, and they like a few hills in Spain.
You've got a 100% record. Quick name?
To win today? I know what you're going to say, and I'm going to say it first. I'm going for Philippe Gilbert. This is a great course for him, and he showed us yesterday he's come here with good legs.
I don't think that's ever happened before. 2 days in a row we've actually agreed. Philippe Gilbert,
which
for
means
me.
we'll both be wrong, but never mind.
It'd be so wrong from me to go against the family. We look forward to seeing you guys after the race. We'll take a break here on Wide World of Sports. Welcome back to Channel 9's Wide World of Sports, the Santos Tour Down Under. We had a wonderful day yesterday, stage one, of course, and the winner was Andre Greipel. Adelaide, the city of churches, has been shining the last few days. It's going to be the same the whole week. A little warmer today, but absolutely beautiful for the Hahn Super Dry Stage 2. It's great to be here. Everyone's loving it. Let's get to the commentary.
So let's have a look at the route of Stage 2 today from Mount Barker to Rostrevere. 2 new towns after 15 years of the Santos Tour Down Under. Leaving the city of Adelaide, the race goes up to the start at Mount Barker, 116 kilometres, and that's around 73 miles.
Very short but violent stage. A couple of sprint points out on the day, but the most important strategic day of the race is when they get to the final climb of the day, Corkscrew Hill.
Once over the top, it is a 7 kilometres, slightly less than 5 miles, charged away from the Adelaide Hills down to the finishing line in Rostrevere. Here we go. So the riders are underway, and I shouldn't imagine they're in too much of a hurry here. Mike Turter, the former Olympic team pursuit champion in Los Angeles, in the car there, keeping them nice and calm before we clear the town of Mount Barker.
But with the stage only being 116 kilometres long, we can expect, as always, a very rapid start. I wouldn't be surprised to see Team Uni SA going out on the attack.
Well, we have a man on the far right there. That's Adam Phelan in the white jersey riding along the edge of the road. Maybe it'll be him. He's moving up. Can you believe? The riders aren't going to be in too much of a hurry just now. It's a beautiful day, and there is a very hard finish.
That's usually pretty much the order of the day from Team Uni SA. It's a young team, 19, 20 years of age, but full of enthusiasm.
And here he goes. Adam Phelan's got himself to the front. He's now testing the water as he starts to accelerate clear. Now this on this second day, we're seeing again a man from the Uni SA team who is going out in front. We'll see who tries to join him, I think.
A reaction coming from the Argos Shimano rider Will Clark, so that's going to put 2 Australians at the front end of this bike race. And again, if you look at the main field, there still has not really been any reaction.
So 2 riders getting together. They are trying to establish what Paul Sherwin always calls the morning breakaway, although it's not too far away from midday here in South Australia. Holding it together, but the gaps are forming here. Everybody looking at each other, nobody in a hurry, because it's the sting in the tail today with the final climb of Corkscrew Hill.
Just looking at those flags at the side of the road, that's what's going to make it very, very difficult here as these riders are buffeted by the wind.
So it looks as though we've got one attack again trying to get off the front. Looks like it might be Damien Howson who's starting a move here as well, being chased by the Garmin Sharp rider, and that is not too sure which one it is actually at the moment for Garmin Sharp, trying to get away on that move.
Well, everybody's basically trying to break the stranglehold at the front end of the main field, trying to get into that early morning breakaway to try and steal an advantage over the peloton. It looks now as if the 4-man leading group is starting to form.
Yeah, well, that was Nathan Haas, but they've all gone back, and this is a 4-man group which is now establishing a little lead. Calvin Watson is on the front. We've got Guillaume Bonifond here for Team AG2R. Will Clark is on the far right in the all-white jersey for the Argos Shimano, and the other rider just coming into shot there is Chris Juel Jensen of Denmark. And it looks like that's the combination, because the pressure has gone off in the peloton. And this is very typical of the Adelaide Hills, which comprises rolling farmland and vineyards. It has more than 40 cellar doors in the area. The Hills is one of South Australia's key wine regions. The Adelaide Hills is blessed with a cool climate and known for making high-quality Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay. It ranges from small and rustic to modern, no cellar door is the same. So there's the 4 leaders now establishing. The first target of the day will be the town of Chunga, coming after 32 kilometres, that's 20 miles, where there's a 3-second time bonus for the man that gets there first, just inside 1 minute's lead.
They'll be happy with that. They're starting to establish. If you look at these riders, they will share all of the pacemaking together to try and build an advantage over the main field. But because of Corkscrew Hill, Phil, being such an important strategic point in this year's Santos Tour Down Under, I don't think they're going to be given too much freedom.
A hand goes up at the front there. Just a service call. Looks like it might be Luke Durbridge doing a bit of work down there, followed by Martin Kohler, the champion of Switzerland, around the corner. Now the 2 riders in that breakaway with the most to gain are Calvin Watson and Guillaume Bonifant, because overnight they're 10 seconds behind the lead of Andre Greipel.
People often say to me, why do riders go out in the breakaway so early on in the event when they nearly always get caught down towards the end? Well, that's the reason why, because nearly always get caught. Sometimes it works, and for Will Clark it did last year on the road into Stirling.
That's right, we're a day short of going to Stirling this time around, but Will Clark did win on the same circuit we'll see in tomorrow's stage in Stirling. Now Martin Kohler getting control of the head of the peloton here, and the man from Sky just behind there is Bernard Eisel, ever present. Here's the breakaway.
And also just behind him was Andy Schleck. So Andy Schleck obviously working for the team here this afternoon. So a lot of big teams are controlling the front end of the peloton, making sure that these guys don't steal too much of an advantage.
Well, I couldn't quite read the board, but I think it indicated the time is slightly increasing at the moment. Still plenty of teams to keep men in the workhorse in the engine room at the front. As Schleck, I think it said about 2 minutes there, 2 minutes 10 seconds. Andy Schleck just flexing his legs now, making his presence known in his first visit, not just to this race, but to Australia indeed. So the race goes on. 4 riders are clear of the field, but for how long? The 4 leaders then heading towards Chunga now, coming up to the 32 kilometre point of the 116 kilometre day, so about 20 miles covered, Paul, and this the first sprint of the day. So there's 3 seconds at stake, and 2 of these riders are only 10 seconds behind the race leader Greipel.
The board you can see on the left-hand side of the road, the red one, indicating we're now coming into the final kilometre. 3 seconds for the first rider to cross the line, 2 seconds and 1 second. And the main field are still hovering at around about 2 minutes. But some of the big teams in this bike race are keeping the pressure on and not allowing a big escape today.
A lot of different teams represented on the peloton there, because they're all nervous. They want to keep these riders in touch with themselves because of the final climb, which we top out only 7 kilometres from the finish. Well, Bonifant on the front, flicking his left elbow, saying somebody else's turn. And Chris Jules Jensen of Denmark, he's gone through. The other 2 Australians are following. The sprint is literally just around there. And this is for the Jayco sprint points.
It certainly is. 5 points at stake as they go around the corner. They can't exactly see yet where to open up the sprint. Will Clark sitting in second position in the white jersey, getting himself a big ride on a World Pro Tour team this year, Argos Shimano from the Netherlands.
As long as they keep going straight on, because if they make a right turn, they'll be heading back to where they started from today at Mount Barker. Now lining up for the sprint. 3 seconds doesn't sound very much, but in this race over 6 days, very often won by just a couple of seconds. And the sprint has been opened by Will Clark, the man who won in Stirling last year, and now a professional with Argos Shimano, and that might be good enough. He's being challenged by Calvin Watson, but Clark will take 3 seconds. Watson gets 3 seconds. He's actually the leader on the road at the moment now, younger Watson, because he's now only 7 seconds plus his time gains of the day ahead now of Andre Greipel. That's how it all happened.
Well, that was a big acceleration. He was very confident, Clark, as he looks over his shoulder. He knew he'd got this. Bear in mind, Phil, it was probably in the Santos Tour Down Under last year with his stage victory that some of the international team managers looked at him and said, we'll have a piece of that class.
And 5 points towards the blue Jayco sprint jersey as well for Will Clark, who's now dropped back into the line. All 4 riders are willing to help themselves. There's the peloton just behind, rolling quite gently along, not too concerned as they go through the feeding station here. So we are now just about in Hahndorf itself.
Important on a day like this to go through the hydration station from Powerade and make sure that you get plenty of liquid on board, because it's probably the hottest day we've had so far in this week.
A little bit of a slowing down, so that might progress the 4 leaders here as the riders snatch their little musettes, as we call them. It'll be full of what they fancy, drinks and a little bit of food. Not a long stage today. They won't need too much as they speed on through the town. Plenty of cars lined up. Here they are now, the 4 leaders. A little bit further ahead in Hahndorf. A massive crowd, as we always get in this beautiful German enclave. Has been part of the Tour Down Under for the majority of its 15 editions. And a chance there too for Calvin Watson to experience the crowds here in his first Santos Tour Down Under.
Number 41, by the way, just happens to be Andy Schleck, and he's the man doing the pacemaking. Obviously, I think, Phil, as you mentioned, they're setting it up for their man, who is a very, very good climber, Macchiato.
Schleck down there at the moment. Big test day for Andy today, I think. He was seen near the back of the bunch yesterday, but didn't seem distressed. But remember, this man coming back to the highest level after a terrible crash last year in the Dauphiné in the month of June, just before the Tour de France, and that he broke his pelvis. It was in a time trial of all things, when you're racing alone as well. Just went a little bit too quick. Turbo Durbo, as they call him, Luke Durbridge down there. He's the second rider in line as he rides on the back wheel of Andy Schleck, keeping an eye on things. You can always bet your life Schleck will be washed wherever he goes, and it's Bernie Eisel, the man who used to be the lead-out man for Mark Cavendish. They've split this year because Eisel has stayed with Team Sky. Very strong rider. Martin Kohler in the red as champion of Switzerland as well. Led this race on 2 separate occasions last year, and could be the surprise, Paul, because he's won a few King of the Mountains titles in his time, and good day to start leading in the Skoda classification here.
Well, it would be, but the way he's riding at the front, I think he's thinking a little bit more about his own teammate, Philippe Gilbert. You've got BMC riding near the front for Philippe Gilbert. You've got Sky riding towards the front for Edvard Bosenhagen. And, of course, you've got Andy Schleck, I think, riding for his younger teammate, Macchiato, who finished high up here in the overall standings last year.
Now, we've continued to leave Hahndorf behind us, this beautiful German enclave here in the Adelaide Hills, and moving on a little bit further now as the riders head towards Oakbank, which is their next big challenge of the day. The terrain has got a little bit harder, but they're just holding tempo. Well, that's going to lead to an interesting chase towards the end if that's what they've chosen to do. The peloton there was passing through Littlehampton. These are the leaders back out in the country. This is kangaroo country in the Adelaide Hills. They don't all go to bed during the hot days. You might see the odd one. Looks like we're running back down towards Hahndorf here. Look at the crowd here, massive crowd. They have always, over the 15 years, welcomed this race with open arms. And still seeing the same 4 riders out in front, now changing direction as they're going out the way they came in about half an hour or so ago.
Yeah, but now they're starting to line themselves up for the warm-up and the approach to the final climb of the day, Corkscrew Hill. The main field have been very, very alert since the start of the stage this afternoon. They've never really given this breakaway group of 4 riders very much freedom at all. They've kept them pegged in. It's hovered around the 2-minute margin. It's gone up as high as 2 minutes and 10 seconds. It's come back down again a fraction. But once we start to go out now to start lining up for Corkscrew, I think we'll start to see that gap diminish.
So they're saying goodbye to Hahndorf here now. This is a beautiful German enclave, it really is. In fact, it's Australia's oldest German settlement. The German pubs, the bakeries, the butchers. There's a large range of fresh local produce here. You can collect some of the produce and you can also create your own picnic. Wander up the bustling main street, and we've done it many times, Paul Shea and I, and take in the old buildings, the boutique shops, the cafes and the restaurants. The riders today, we've often finished there, but they didn't get a chance today to stop by. But they're now leaving Hahndorf. as we head out towards a new finish at Rostrevor. It just happens to be a big wall in the way as we head towards the only climb of the day, which is categorized in the Skoda King of the Mountains competition.
I think that's the main thing as we look at 50 kilometres or 31 miles of racing to go. Yes, there is only one categorised climbs, but there's a lot of lumps on the course here this afternoon. However, before they get to that climb of Corkscrew Hill, there is one more team sprint, time bonus sprint for the riders to get to, and that's when they go through Oakbank. 3 seconds, 2 seconds and 1 second for the first 3 riders to go through that point.
See, this is the main field coming into Hahndorf now. That gap is closing down as the riders have made the right turn here. A big compact peloton. There's 2 groups in that bunch. There's the boys at the back would like to get the day over with, and there's the boys in the front who want those 4 leaders back because they've got cards to play.
Yes, but look at the length of the main field. That's not a field that's hanging around at all here this afternoon. They're taking this stage very, very seriously. I think this is probably going to be one of the toughest Santos Tour Down Unders we've had over the last few years. They've included this year this incredible climb with Corkscrew Hill, Phil, being just so close to the finish, and it's straight down towards the finish line. Basically, if you go over the top of the final climb of the day with a slight advantage, you're not really going to lose any of it on the way down.
These 4 riders, I think it's fair to say, none of them are going to win the Santos Tour Down Under, but even so, there's a prize as well, thanks to Jayco.
But of course it is important to look for those time bonus seconds because at the end of this race in the past we've seen seconds and sometimes only race finishing equal on time, especially last year between Alejandro Valverde and Simon Gerrans. 1 kilometre to go now. Now I keep looking at that wheel there of Will Clark. He's number 163 and I think he's gingerly steering his bike up to this 1 kilometre mark to see. I keep looking at that wheel and it looks as if it might be a slowly softening front tyre.
There is concern with it, and we have seen the service motorbike go forward. Now I'm wondering if he's trying to hang on until he gets through the sprint. As I'm about to say, looks like he's starting to move out a little bit. If he has got a soft tyre, as soon as he's through this sprint, he'll be off his bike and hopefully get a quick change for a new front wheel. It's a long straight road, difficult for the riders to judge this one as they're looking for the 3-second time bonus, 2 and 1, so 3 of the 4 riders will get small time bonuses.
Well, he's waiting. He's putting himself into the right position. He's got himself onto the wheel of the Frenchman Bonnefond. And there's a little move now coming from Will Clark, from Calvin Watson.
Yeah, Calvin Watson's gone. The 20-year-old decided to open it up. Another rider with a big future, and it's Will Clark who's chasing him down for August, not having any of that. 2 Australians wanted to go. He's gone too early. He sat up, and now they're all looking at each other once again. 250 metres to go.
Well, he was looking for the surprise there, but now it's Bonnefond's turn to try and whip up. And every time there you can see that Will Clark just gets into the slipstream of the rider in front, waiting for the time to pounce. He's coming up alongside him, and I think he's going to get maximum points and 3 more time bonus seconds.
Clark over Bonnefond. Bonnefond was 3rd in the previous one, so Will has now taken 6 seconds time bonus. Of course, if when they catch up he gets left behind, the 6 seconds are going to be meaningless to him, but for the moment, that's a good result. Will Clark last year was winning the stage into Stirling, and he brought the crowd, and a massive crowd it was, and will be when we go back there this week, to their feet. They were really egging him on. It was a tremendous victory. So they're all coming back together again.
Well, now that they've got themselves through that sprint point, they've got to get concentrated on getting themselves organised to try and hold on to as much of their advantage as possible. Now's the moment of truth to see whether or not there is a slight problem there with the front wheel of Will Clark, but he seems to be quite happy to carry on. Well, the chase is getting itself organised. You can see that long line of riders right at the front end of the pack. The pack grouping together behind to try and shelter as much as they can from the wind. A little bit further up there you can just about see the car, so I would say the gap now, Phil, will be down to around about the 1 minute margin.
Yes, it won't be much more, will it? They're just going into the distance in the trees at the top of our picture there. And these will be different teams to yesterday. These won't be the sprinters teams. They'll be the teams who are carrying riders with the capability not just of conquering Corkscrew, but of winning this race overall. Now out at just under 2, where I think it's a hiccup because the field here look as though they're actually organised now, aren't they, Rob?
They're getting very organised. The GC riders and their teams are moving towards the front. The pace is starting to pick up. There's definitely a lot of nerves in the bunch. Guys want to avoid accidents, and when you have a run into the bottom of a climb like we have today, all downhill, anything can happen. If you get caught behind a crash, it's race over. Everyone wants to be at the front where it's safe, and that's the thing that actually makes it dangerous. Everyone wanting to be in the same place at the same time.
Well, a couple of quick questions, Robbie. Have you ever actually ridden up Corkscrew Hill?
I have. I haven't this week. I rode up there about 20 years ago. And I guess this is a sign. This is a sign of how hard it is. I still remember it. And it's not called Corkscrew for no reason either.
Well, the reason I asked that was because as a sprinter, we're looking here right on the front, on the left-hand side there in the ochre jersey. There is Andre Greipel. We've pretty much written off Andre Greipel. Are we right to do so?
I think so today, because the GC guys know this is one of their opportunities to split the race up and establish themselves. I think it's just going to be too steep for Andre.
Well, as we continue to course, let's find out from an expert, apart from Robin McEwen, that is, because having rode this stage last week, Thomas de Gent of Belgium gave us his prediction on what would happen at the end of today's stage.
No, the problem with stage 2 is that there is a descent after the climb, and then a lot of guys can come back. If you don't have anybody of the team that can work for you, then and don't think they all gonna work together to stay away. So I think there's a possibility that there will be a big group at the finish, 40 or 50 riders, maybe more, because of this descent.
Well, I was thought about 10, but we'll see, because I think Thomas de Gent wants to win this race.
I think he wants to win it, and I don't think there'll be that many riders together at the finish. Corkscrew has a section that is very, very steep. We're talking up towards 20% for a good 700 metres. It then goes another 600 going a little bit easier. The first 1.2 kilometres is also not easy at 10%, so that's a really solid climb. It's a very fast descent, but it's technical at the top. Anyone who's just a little bit off a group will find it very, very hard to come back. This descent is lightning fast.
You really have remembered it, even if it was 20 years ago.
I especially remember the downhill, because that was my favourite bit.
Luke Durbridge on the front, a workhorse at the moment for Orica Greenedge, setting it up, he hopes, for Simon Gerrans to move up later. Lotto still interested here. They might have a man for the overall as well, even if they lose the lead, because Jürgen Roelands, who had a terrible memory of this race last year when he broke his number 6 vertebrae, has fully recovered and finished 10th in the Olympic Games road race, so he can climb quite well as well. Average speed today, Paul, is pretty nippy for the hills at 41 kilometres an hour.
Well, it certainly is, and I think that's what the major contenders would have wanted to have. They wouldn't have wanted an easy stage. They would like to toughen up. Because it's only 116 kilometres, that's why they're happy to have this 4-man breakaway, because they've kept the pressure on all day, and that means there's more chance of there being gaps on the run in towards the finish, Robbie.
Well, also having a short stage, everybody's not too fatigued, but it increases the speed on the actual climb itself. Everybody's fresher, including the climbers. They go up it even faster. I really don't expect the bunch to be very big at the top.
Now you're going to see some stunning descents here now as we start to head towards the gorge. And a long charge down the beautiful gorge here before we make the left turn, slam the brakes on and get round the bend, and then start. It's a little bit flat as you make the corner, then you can get kicking in. This is where all of the best bike riders to come out of Australia have spent many happy hours training around the Adelaide Hills, haven't they, Robin McEwen?
They've spent plenty of hours. Like I said, 20 years ago was the last time I rode the Corkscrew. It was out on one of the many rides we did through these hills. I do have to say, even though I'm a bit parochial and I love the Gold Coast, I do have to admit that Adelaide is probably the best riding in Australia. It's just got absolutely everything.
Well, I was talking to Stuart O'Grady just the other night, and he was talking about Corkscrew Hill. He said in the track days, when he was a real serious track rider, Charlie Walsh used to bring the team pursuiters down to Corkscrew Hill. It made them ride up the climb on 42-17, that's the gear ratio, and they weren't allowed to get out of the saddle to ride up the climb, sitting down in an effort to build up strength.
I think back in the day, the riders of the track team did every single hill in the whole Adelaide region in the big chain ring, with the exception of Corkscrew, went light on them and let them use the 42.
119, the gap is coming down quite quickly here. These riders will be descending at round about 60 kilometres an hour just now, and clearly the front group descending that little bit slower as they course down towards the gorge, and as they pick their way through the eucalyptus trees here.
Well, this is now all going to be about the lining up for that very important bend to the start of Corkscrew Hill.
Well, the descent is on, but very shortly the ascent will be on, and that is sure to decide the result of the second day of the Santos Tour Down Under. And the shops. But these boys will have to take the fast food on the run today now as they go down towards the left turn, which will take them up the climb. It's a little bit away from them at the moment, maybe about 12 kilometers or so. But the boys at the front now are making this a very personal race. These boys are hanging on at the back.
Number 41 at the back, Andy Schleck, but he was doing a lot of pacemaking earlier on. I think he's really trying to get him. He's got to hurt himself over the next couple of months in races. When you've had 4 or 5 months, you've been in that situation yourself, Robbie McEwen, haven't you? When you've been out of the sport for a long time because of injury, but you've got a bit more added motivation to fight and try that little bit harder to find your form back again.
You've got to whip yourself into shape, and Andy's got one thing on his mind, and that's Tour de France. Everything from now till then is in function of the Tour de France. He's here, he's helping his teammates. You see he's got a Coke in the back pocket. He's going to come and bring somebody that last little sugar rush to maybe help them up the climb. And I'll be thinking about, like I said, Tiago Machado. But I hadn't mentioned my dark horses for today, and one of those is another Radio Shack rider, New Zealander George Bennett. He was second at the championships just the other week, just behind Hayden Ralston, his teammate. He's in great shape. He's a really good climber and a very good time trialist. I think he'll be there with them. My other one is young Aussie TT champion with the under-23s, silver in the road race, Damien Howson. I think he can play a part.
Oh, well, if you score with him, I'll take my hat off to you for sure, Rob. Because that would be a good ride. But you're right, I was in Buninyong when...
To explain the rules a little bit, we're looking at 23 kilometres to go to the finish. Now, the rules in international cycling are you can go back to the team car and take on board drinks after 50 kilometres has been covered, up until 20 kilometres to go, which is why we've seen all this scurry of activity just at the moment with riders coming back with bottles in their back pockets to go and distribute to the team. It was the last chance before the climbing starts.
Nice narrow road here at the moment, but plenty of racing to be done here. I think that Chris Juul Jensen of Denmark in that blue jersey, he seems to be constantly stretching his back now. I think it's been a long way out front for him.
Well, I think there is vehicle behind. They're starting to clear out that gap because, in fact, once you see the referee get out like that, he's trying to see how quickly the gap is coming down to make sure that the gap is clean once the peloton approaches.
Well, the defending champion of this race, and he's back in the peloton and looking useful. As the gap comes down to 50 seconds, you might shortly see the peloton, but this might be the time for Simon Gerrans to make a move. He tells us the team makeup of his Orica Green Edge squad and why he's looking forward to this very race.
We sort of got a bit of a combination going in our team. The fact that we got Matt Goss for the sprint stages and a couple of his key lead-out men, and then we've got a couple of guys here that are really helping me out in the overall. So, if anything, I'll probably like it better than the previous editions of Tour Down Under. Last year we had the one hilltop finish up on top of Old Wollonga Hill, which really made a selection on the GC. This year we're doing some extra laps of the Stirling course, and also have stage finish on stage 2 that just goes over the corkscrew and then down to the finish. So yeah, there's a couple of little tough stage finishes in there this year.
Yes, and I think he's waiting now to just see how he goes on this climb. We're going to continue to descend at the moment. These boys are really racing down this descent. It's not long now, Rob, before they see those boys. I think those 4 up front really just wanted to get onto the slopes of the climb, and then they might have a chance.
Or maybe they thought if they could build a big enough gap, get onto the climb and get caught near the top, they could survive with the front of the race. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. The gap is dropping really fast now. Going back to Simon Gerrans, another rider in the Orica Green Edge team we're expecting big things of in support, and who knows what else, you never know what the race may throw up, is Simon Clark. He's the mountain jersey winner of the last Vuelta a España, and he's a seriously good climber.
Just sorry to trying to explain a little bit of the chaos here right now. The race referee there in the silver car, he's trying to get everybody out of the gap because he realizes now this is the point when it comes down very, very quickly. We've ridden 95 kilometers so far, and look at the average speed now. It's gone up a kilometer an hour faster than it was the last time. 41.5 kilometers, which means in the last 20 minutes of racing we've been cruising at about 50 kilometers an hour
at least, and on these long descents I would say nearer 70. 20 kilometers to go. That's around 12 miles from the finish. They've taken out the support vehicles, which means the gap is probably 30 seconds, and behind our camera These boys are beginning to fly now. The catch is going to come before the climb. 32, there we are.
Robbie, that's the moment, isn't it? When you've been in a breakaway all day and you've had the team car behind, you've had the race referee behind, you're feeling pretty comfortable, we've got the nice gap, but that moment when the referee panics and gets out of the gap, it's, you know pretty much by that time it's all over.
Well, the catch is on and it won't be far away now. Down there. The lonely figure of William Bonifon. The peloton has just swept him up. There's 3 left. They're only just ahead of the peloton. They went right around him, put him back in his place. He's the first to be caught. 3 more, and there they are, spread over the road. The break is over. We are about 7 kilometres from the start of the climb of the corkscrew, and the race has come all together.
I think there may well be one last survivor. It may well be quite possible that Will Clark is still in front. There he is, just by a fraction. He hasn't quite given up yet, but did you see the speed that Team Sky came by?
Well, I think he got the instructions to attack by his team car and give it another go, but it's all going to be to no avail. At 17 kilometres from the finish, it's all over.
Well, I think the other thing, when you've been in a break of 4 all day long, you know you're not getting to the finish. Guys start to think about the little things. How can I get on the podium? Most aggressive, I'll be last man standing, off I go.
Good point, and that might confirm him as the most aggressive rider of the day, which is sponsored by Europcar today, and we'll just see now who is going to win the stage, and that's the important thing, because I think whoever wins the day today will be the next leader of this race.
Some serious work being done there by the riders in the black and blue helmets, and that is obviously, I think, today going to be for Edvald Boasson-Hagen. He's one of the most talented bike riders on the international circuit, and he has been around for quite a long time. Had a quiet season in the Tour de France last year because they had something else on their mind. They wanted to try and win the Tour de France overall with Bradley Wiggins, but when he's given a free hand,
crash.
Oh la la.
Touch of wheels at the back of the race, and 2 or 3 riders fell down. There is one.
It looks like USA riders.
I'm wondering if it's actually Calvin Watson there, as he was slipping out the back of the bunch. Somebody rode at the back of him, but we can't see it from the helicopter. Anyway, he looks okay. That's the most important thing.
This is the tense moment, is the tenseness of this approach to the turn into the climb, that everybody, they're on the rivet. They're sitting at the front end of the saddle there. They've got their hands close to the handlebars. Let's have a quick look at what was happening.
Well, see, riders coming down from the breakaway because of the acceleration, and there it is. Well, that's an unfortunate crash. It was a UniSA rider, and I think it was Calvin Watson. He ran up the back of a Movistar rider there.
Yeah, you saw as Will Clark was drifting, then guys trying to get around the Liquigas guy, Cannondale, into somebody else, and here's our victim who really had nothing to do with it.
Well, it wasn't his fault. In fact, there was a rider from Argos Shimano who was slipping back through the main field as well, because I think he felt that the climber was actually starting to pull up in front of him. Now, it's a different team doing the pacemaking. It's Team Astana from Kazakhstan now trying to winding up a fraction at the front end. But look at those red and black jerseys sitting in the wings there. That's the team of Team BMC. That's the team of Philippe Gilbert, and when the time comes, he'll ask them to crank it up a little bit.
Well, they're now racing deep into the heart of the Flinders Ranges here, and we'll show you really what it looks like in a few minutes' time when they turn on. But let's remind ourselves that the Flinders Ranges, just 3 hours' drive from downtown Adelaide, extends all the way north to the outback. You can try bike riding, you can try 4-wheel driving, bush camping, you can go on camel treks. The rugged terrain is a unique part of Australia, and visitors have the opportunity to stay on working cattle stations as well. This is where you get a real sense of South Australia's outback. A wild place in the outback, a wild scene down below us at the moment as we continue our trace. We're heading deep into the gorge. They call it the gorge. We're dropping into it, and there's only one way out for the riders today.
3 or 4 kilometres of respite. You can see that little downhill part there before they line themselves up finally from that kicker right down towards the end. 3 kilometres of ascent at a 9% average gradient, but as Robbie McEwen said, when you go around the hairpin bends, it kicks up to 20% in the corners.
And this is a really important moment in the race, and it was spoken about in the team meeting. It's too late now for any others to profit from this info. Our team captain on the road and local cycling legend Stuart O'Grady said, stay relaxed until you get to the dam. From that moment on, that's where it gets important to be at the front. Don't waste energy before that. coming towards the dam, and look who's hit the front.
O'Grady, as Jens Muris switches off the front. They had a bad start to the 2013 year because it was a party New Year's Eve in Melbourne. Somebody stole his cycling shoes. That was very pleasant. This is the view you see, by the way, on your final approach into Adelaide Airport. It follows this gorge as it heads down to the airport, and that's the dam, and this is the peloton now. It's a little bit further downhill before we make the left turn.
Yeah, Phil, I've just got a quick question about that. Why would you take your cycling shoes to a sort of New Year's party?
Because apparently the team are always told to carry the most important things in the backpack wherever they go. Robbie might be able to tell me if it's true or not. So he had his passport, his iPod, and his cycling shoes.
That is true.
Went. Is that true, Robbie?
Yeah, but I don't know who's going to wear his shoes. They're about size 67.
No, that sounds very large to me, but he's a big boy. Anyway, he's done his job there. He's quite clearly trying to help pave the way for Simon Gerrans here, and it's now Stuart O'Grady. Orica Green Edge, so far so good. They've got their team in control at the front.
Well, as Robbie said a little bit earlier, it's almost now as if we were looking at the lineup for a bunch sprint. It's so important to get yourself around that corner in the right position. It's a little bit like in the one-day classics, races like the Paris-Roubaix or the Tour of Flanders. Riders battle for the strategic points of the race. They battle for the cobblestones. They battle for the cobbled climbs. Here, they are battling for the corner of Corkscrew Hill.
Now, over the last 10 kilometres, I think we may be able to show you just how fast these guys are going. Greipel has pushed his way through. Look at that, over the last 10 kilometres, the speed has been 46.7 kilometres an hour average. They're really going to hit this climb very quickly indeed.
Well, we might think it's a bunch sprint. Lotto hit the front again, but I did have a quick chat to Jürgen Roelands before the start, and he said he's going to have a go at it. He said he feels quite good. He's been training well. He's going to hit the climb and see how far he can get.
And wipe away the bad memories of last year when he broke his number 6 vertebrae in this race.
Number 7 there, he's done his job for the day. He's paced his men up to the front. Stuart O'Grady, local knowledge. He knows how to conserve his energy, and he knows that if Simon Gerrans gets the overall lead, he's going to have a little bit more energy tomorrow to try and defend that lead. You can see the heads are twisting and snaking around, looking for the position of their teammates in the main field to make sure they're at the front, to make sure they're in the right position. They don't want to put a teammate into a spot of bother before this corner. Look at all the movement here.
There's a lot of movement here, and they're slamming on for a sharp left-hand bend as we continue our descent of the gorge. And this is now 14.6 kilometres from the finish. Well, Jürgen Roelands not only broke his number 6 vertebrae in this very race last year, he then went on to finish 7th in the Olympic Games, and then in October he broke his collarbone. So he's had a real poor season last year, and let's hope it all goes right for him on this week here in Adelaide.
Well, even though Will Clark made that last little flurry of attacks before he got pulled back into the fold, the race radio just informing me that in fact Robbie's training partner from Queensland, Christoph Juul Jensen, has been awarded the most aggressive rider of the day.
Quite right too.
It's nice for him. Trip to the podium and see the girls and get a jersey and maybe a little Australian souvenir.
Well, there's been plenty of Australian souvenirs being given out so far. It usually comes in the colour of a red Cabernet Sauvignon. Notice that Andre Greipel was doing the pacemaking there, and that, of course, was for his teammate Jürgen Roelands. He's been given the nod. He almost is certain to lose the overall lead today, so what you do is you turn around and you do something for the rest of the team.
Absolutely, as a sprinter, you don't get many chances to do something for the rest of the team. If it's flat, they work for you. If it's overly hilly, you're out the back. This is a chance for Andre Greipel to give a little bit back, and it's a really nice gesture.
Sorry about a little bit of picture breakup. It's due to the gorge. We're getting into the throat of the animal now as we head down, and shortly we'll be turning left off this road. If they go straight on, they could go straight more or less down to the finish in Ross Trevor, but we're not going that way. 14 kilometres to go, so we're 4 kilometres from the start of the climb.
Yeah, but I have to say, Team Sky have been very attentive at the front end of the main field, and I would say that Edvard Boasson-Hagen has got some very good legs on him here this afternoon. He won a stage in the Tour de France 2 years ago when he escaped on the slopes of the last nasty little climb and took advantage of the tricky descent on the running towards the finish to come up with an overall win. What a year that was for Norwegian cycling. 2 stage victories for Thor Hushovd and 2 stage victories for Edvard Boasson-Hagen.
Out of the saddle, this is the undulations of the gorge. You're going down 1 minute, you're climbing the next, and the boys having to work a little bit hard to close the gaps down again, and somebody's gone. This is an attack, and this is one of the riders from the Argus Shimano here who has gone.
Yann Uguay, French rider on that team, and he's gone very early on. We haven't actually got to the steep part of the climb yet. We're still about 3 kilometers away from the actual start. The dark blue jerseys, that's the Movistar team. They were the ones who did a lot of damage yesterday, and gaps are already starting to appear. Number 5 moving up there, Simon Clark.
Yeah, but that is Jose Herrada who's gone up and he was the guy with Gutierrez who ripped the field apart with 4 kilometers to go yesterday.
Well, you can see the way the riders' shoulders are rocking as they try to keep in the saddle there. That's an indication they're on a fairly steep part of the climb. Herrada is setting the tempo, but I don't think he's setting the tempo for himself. I feel certain they're trying to split this race up as much as possible. There's the world champion in that white jersey with the bands around in about 5th or 6th position. Perfect. He's sitting comfortably behind 2 of his teammates.
Perfect waiting, hey Robbie, on 2 teammates' wheels. That's looking ominous for the rest, isn't it?
And Gilbert's just having a look around, seeing what the rest are doing. He'll stay in around that position, be conservative, and his trademark is to get near the top of the climb, and it's just an absolute explosion. He rides away. Everyone knows it's going to happen. You just need to be able to follow it, and there aren't many that can.
Chris Sutton, the man in black, looking over to see who's just behind him. We may be owing Robbie apology in a minute, Paul, because the guy alongside him is Moreno.
And the other guy up alongside him is George Bennett. So Robbie's given us a few pretty good names here this afternoon. He wears number 42 for Team Radio Shack.
Still 13 kilometres to go. It can all go wrong for Robbie.
I'll get one wrong soon just to make you feel better.
Well, Moreno has come from the back, the very last rider to be right up in the thick of it, so he knows exactly where he is on the course. As we pass under the Skoda sign, the Skoda King of the Mountains today is up for grabs because this is a first category climb, and the man that goes over the top first will probably be the next leader, as we've seen a move by Amador. Andre Amador has launched an attack. This is the Movistar 1-2.
The only rider from Costa Rica in the race. In fact, he's probably the only rider from Costa Rica on the international circuit, and he's taking part in the Tour de France.
And he's opened a very, very big gap, and there's going to have to be a reaction, and it's coming here at the moment. This looks like Matthew Lloyd is dancing his way up the climb.
It is Matthew Lloyd, number 121. This is the kind of climb that he rides. He had to fight to get himself a bit of position, and look at that. He's gone straight by the rider from Costa Rica. Now, this rider has got a fair history with this race going back. I remember when he was a youngster, he was charging down the climb of Wollonga Hill to get himself back into Wollonga, and he blacked out because he'd just not been able to hydrate himself. He ended up in hospital that night, but he's come back and he's had a win in the King of the Mountains in the Giro d'Italia. He's coming back now from some serious injury too.
Well, with Matthew Lloyd, he's had a love-hate relationship these last couple of years, but now there's a counter-attack on from George Bennett, the man that Robbie has mentioned. He did get the silver medal in the recent New Zealand Championships behind Hayden Rolton, who isn't here. And he's obviously got a lot of confidence from that performance.
Yes, he's come up through the ranks of the Livestrong Trek squad as well. They're looked after by Axel Merckx, the son of Eddie Merckx, who believes that he's put together some seriously good climbers. Look at how much damage this race has already done as we start to wind our way up. And look at that nasty little climb.
It makes it pretty easy to see why this climb is called the corkscrew when you get that helicopter shot. But George Bennett, he is so slightly built. I think he'd be lucky to be 50 kilo ringing wet. And this sort of climb is really tailor-made for him, riders of his stature. But we'll see soon enough if he's gone out too early, but he's doing some huge damage.
He's gone out very early here, but George Bennett has decided to throw down the gauntlet. It's about 3 kilometres up the climb. Bennett will get all the cheers here, and he's being joined by a hard-riding man from Sky here, and I'm just wondering who this one is.
Geraint Thomas, if I...
Oh, it is indeed Geraint Thomas.
From here, I'd say.
Yeah, it is. He's got the Union flag on his shoulder there, indicating he's a former British national champion. He said at the start of this race, he said, I want to get rid of my track fat, because this man is a gold medalist from the London Olympic Games in the team pursuit, and he's looking forward to being possibly a Tour de France contender. He's a great talent from Wales.
Well, there's a pretty good template there already with Bradley Wiggins. Geraint Thomas is a very similar build, a very similar type of rider, a pursuiter, guy with a massive engine on the track. He's now trimmed down a little bit of that track muscle, and you see what it does when he starts to go uphill and open the lungs up a bit.
Well, Geraint Thomas has absolutely destroyed Bennett and the field at the moment. He is riding up this hill as if it is totally flat. He's now given up with the track cycling on which he's been world champion. He's turned his back on it finally to concentrate on becoming a top road cyclist and especially aiming at the Tour de France. Well, if he climbs like this in the Tour de France, they're going to start turning heads.
Well, somebody needs to tell them this is not the 4,000-metre team pursuit at the Olympic Games. But we've always seen this rider as a rider who's been building up over the years. He's ridden the Tour de France previously. He's ridden very well in the one-day classics. And he took off the Tour de France last year because he wanted to specifically prepare for the London Olympics, and he came away with a gold medal. But now he's going to dedicate himself to the road racing side of the sport, and why not a future Tour de France winner?
Absolutely, why not? He's a guy who can set goals and achieve them. He said what he wanted to do. He's obviously trained very, very hard over the winter, and he's ripping the race apart. He's very close to the top of the mountain now, and it's an extremely quick run down to the finish. If anybody can stay in front of the bunch, it's a world champion team pursuiter.
Geraint Thomas, I don't think he's won an actual road race since he was national champion of Great Britain back in 2010, so maybe this could be a big moment for him here. There's a lovely crowd on the corkscrew. He's made it look very, very fast. It reminds me of the top of the Col de Croix de Fer, this in the Alps, but it takes a little bit longer to reach the summit of that climb. Just look at the crowd here. Geraint Thomas gets the points. He's got the Skoda jersey probably tomorrow. It just depends.
Don't be so surprised if you suddenly see a rainbow at the top of this climb as well. Philippe Gilbert will be there somewhere. We saw yesterday he came from nowhere.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, this man was very, very quiet through the first stage of this race here this afternoon, and if anybody can survive on the descent, it'll be this man, because he's a very good bike handler. But there are 2 or 3 other riders just behind him. Now, if they form a 3, 4, 5-man group, I think the race is over.
Well, if you get 3, 4 or 5 riders together, once the roads straighten up a bit and you get a bit of cooperation, they could effectively stay away from the bunch. There is quite another big chasing group behind, but this is a real opportunity for these first 4 guys to get together and become allies, at least until a few hundred metres before the finish.
There are 2 riders in that small group there coming across the gap from Team Radio Shack. One of those must still be George Bennett, because he wasn't too far behind. I would expect the other one to be Thiago Machado, who was 3rd overall in this race last year.
I think Bennett did survive, yeah.
Thiago has made it to the front of the bunch. I'm sure he started down near the back, and he will struggle to follow the wheel down here on the technical sections. If he can manage to hang into this group and they get together,
and
there's our
Moreno.
mate Moreno. So
I doff my cap.
Well, in fact,
Javier Moreno.
That is not Machado. It's in fact it's Ben Hermans, the Belgian rider on the squad, number 44.
Well, that's so he didn't make it from the back to the front, Rob.
All right,
so
he didn't.
Ben Hermans is a good rider too. I always feel that Ben Hermans, if one rider hasn't yet revealed just how good he really is on a bike, but maybe today's the day for him. Hermans number 44 there, 2 teammates in Radio Shack. These 3 are going to have to help each other now to catch Geraint Thomas. He'll be in his apple cart now. There he is. So there's 4 going towards the finish.
Bear in mind the quality of a rider like Geraint Thomas. A couple of years ago, he was wearing the white jersey in the Tour de France. When Bradley Wiggins was trying to win the Tour de France for the first time, Wiggins crashed at the side of the road. And even though he had the white jersey on his shoulder, the team stopped Geraint Thomas at the side of the road to wait and see whether or not he was needed to pace Wiggins back into the race. And he never held that against the team at all. He's absolutely been dedicated to the team, but I think he's trying to assume now the mantle of a leader.
I think today he's absolutely assumed that mantle as leader. The important thing now is that these guys work together. Moreno shaking his head, staying at the back and won't do a turn, which I find really surprising. It's the perfect sort of group to go all the way to the finish. 2 teammates from Radio Shack, they're going to work as hard as they can. Thomas, he wants to get there. It's Moreno throwing a spanner in the works.
Yes, when you've got one rider sitting on the back of a small group like that, it doesn't really encourage you to go flat out. You feel as if you're carrying a sandbag along with you, and you want to get rid of that sandbag. They don't have that much of an advantage for the moment. It's not very much more than about 10 seconds over the front end of another large group.
Well, if I was to pick a winner now, I'd go for Bennett or Geraint Thomas, but they've got to open up the gap. It is a beautiful sprint finish. They'll continue to come downhill all the way to the line on a dead straight road into Rostrevor. This road will continue to twist and turn for a while. Now, that's good for a breakaway, Rob, because they're not going to be inside of anybody chasing until they're right on them.
Well, that big group behind them is very, very close. These guys are really going to have to make a massive effort and all put in to contribute to staying away.
Yep.
Sometimes when you're in a situation like this, it's not just about winning the stage, it's about actually getting as much time as possible. 4 minutes, and at speeds like this, it's not going to take them very much more, 4 kilometres, so it's not going to take them very much more than 4 minutes to get to the finish line.
They've got to drive on. In fact, our cameras had to come out of the way there, because I think you'll find the boys are chasing pretty hard. These 4 are together. The 2 top professionals on Team Radio Shack are driving and showing the pace at the front. Geraint Thomas will not be afraid to try and help them. There's the chase.
A dozen riders behind, led by a Francais de Joux rider.
Yeah, just trying to check out who that Francais de Joux rider was there, but I'm pretty sure it was Jussi Väikönen, the Finnish rider on the squad.
And interesting, on the back of that group was another Sky rider. I'm hoping I can spot an Orica Green Edge amongst there.
They should come across. We should declare colours here, because Robin McEwen, who's our guest commentator, is connected with Orica Green Edge, and he's going to be cheering for them today with Simon Gerrans, I'm sure.
I'd love to see them get up, but I'd also love to see a winner who really deserves it, someone who's put in, made the attacks and made it stick.
Well, there's 11 riders in that group, and 11 riders could suddenly make this 15 riders up front. We may have gone past 3 kilometres, and they may or may not hang on, because it's all downhill. They're going to have to really fly to bridge this gap.
They're absolutely going to have to fly, and what can start to happen in front and behind, guys start to look around and think, who's going to do the work? The front guys may hesitate a little bit, but it could also happen behind, and guys refuse to do any more work.
2.6 kilometres, Rob. It's a blink of an eyelid. It's going to be dead straight for the last kilometre and more. They can see the finishing banner in the distance. There's not a kink in the road. It is an incredibly fast finish now. And the 2 riders from Radio Shack, Hermans and George Bennett of New Zealand, are driving on. There is the view as we're coming away from the gorge now, and away from the mountains and the long straight towards the finish. There's a lot of riders here, and still another Radio Shack rider here is Tiago Machado. Number 45 has got on the back, the rider who was 3rd overall.
It's a gap of maybe 6 or 7 seconds, but when you're travelling at 70 kilometres plus per hour, 2 kilometres to go, those guys behind, I think they're going to have a lot of trouble catching up if these guys can cooperate for a little bit longer. You see Thomas, he just does not want to get caught. He tucks in, he's got that aero position like a time trialist. He wants this thing to stay in front.
And he's right. Every second counts in this race, and there's a 10-second win bonus for the leader. He's looked over his shoulder. He has seen them coming, and quite happy to take up the chase is George Bennett. Under 1 kilometre to go. They're not going to catch. These 4 have stolen the day here and done it well indeed. There's a time gap between them. There will be a new leader. It'll be the man that wins the stage. George Bennett drives on, trying to set it up perhaps for his teammate Ben Hermans, but watch out for the rider in black now. Geraint Thomas, the man who started it all, will try and finish it off. And what about the man Moreno, Javier Moreno in 2nd place? Bennett is going to be forced to lead this one out. They are coming closer by the minute. There are Orica riders back there, and there's the move. They weren't ready for it, and Geraint Thomas has gone early to beat them, and Thomas, who started it all, is finishing it off, and an ochre jersey awaits the rider from Wales in the United Kingdom. This is a rider who's done just about it all. We don't mention his gold medal against the Australians this year in the Olympic Games in London, but we just did. Geraint Thomas crosses the line, the winner, and Sky are on top again. That was fantastic.
What an absolutely fantastic ride. You saw Geraint just pick his moment from the back of the group. He actually laid off them by a length or 2. He ran into the slipstream and just absolutely took off, and his acceleration pulled him away from the rest of the group. He's not only won the stage in the sprint, he's put time into those guys as well. He'll get the extra time bonus seconds, but I think he's created a gap of at least a second on the line as well.
Unbelievable, and that's over his compatriots. Just take us through it then, Rob.
Well, you see him here just lay off, let that little gap run into the slipstream and hit over them. They just did not see it coming. They should never have taken their eyes off him, but you see him, he's just much more explosive. That track background is still with him. He may have fined down and got a little bit lighter and improved his climbing, but that speed, and I think also that tactical nous, that never leaves you. And Geraint has just pedalled away from them. They've just floundered in his wake there, and what a fantastic stage win.
He's been a champion since he was under 16 champion over 500 metres in Great Britain in 2001. Here we are now 12 years later, and he's showing the best bike riders in the world how to finish a road race in Rostrevor. So Geraint Thomas has crossed the line in first place. Calculations will tell us for sure he is the new leader of the Santos Tour Down Under. There's the scene down there as he now gets himself ready. Paul Sherwin has left my side to try and catch an interview. Remember, these are live pictures. First of all, though, Geraint Thomas will want to prepare for this. He's a man who is only 26 years of age, and Paul Sherwin is now with Geraint Thomas.
I most certainly am. Geraint, when I met you at the team presentation a couple of days ago, you said you wanted to get rid of your track fat and leave the Olympic gold medal behind and concentrate on road racing. Well, you've done that today, haven't you?
Yeah, it was a good day, really. I felt good from the start, and the boys worked really well for me, looked after me all day and yesterday. And yeah, I've worked hard in the winter. Since the track, all I've been thinking about is the roads, and this year, and that's what kept me racing after the games. Like back after Beijing, I was just out on the lash, for a few months, but I was straight back on the road and thinking about this year. And I had a good winter, good consistent, just getting the hours in, and yeah, stoked. It's great to win here.
Tell me a little bit about Corkscrew Hill, because everyone was talking about Philippe Gilbert, Simon Gerrans. We didn't see them. We saw you come out of the pack.
Yeah, at one point I did think, oh, what have I done? Have I gone too early? But I just bit the bullet, as they say, and dug in. And luckily that group of 3 behind came up, and they were willing to work. So it was a good little group, and I jumped quite early, actually. I think it's about 400 to go, and I knew it was a fast tailwind, and I see the bunch coming, so I thought, I'll have a nice run at them, hit them, and yeah, it's great to win.
Well, that will be an ochre jersey at the end of the day. Now will you start to nurture thoughts of winning the Santos Tour Down Under overall?
Oh, we'll take tomorrow first, so just take it day by day. I came here just wanting to race hard and possibly get a stage, so done that, and that's fantastic. And GC would be a massive bonus now, but yeah, tomorrow's hard enough, so we'll see what happens there first.
Thanks and congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Well done, Geraint Thomas. He's 26 years of age and a whole future in front of him. Let's have a look at the stage result. I'm surprised they gave the same time to Moreno Hermans, and Tom Slagter got up as well. Tim Wells, the whole field apparently were on the back wheel on the line. So what we haven't got there is confirmation of the overall standings, because the judges now are going to have to calculate that one. But I think there's no doubt in our mind that Geraint Thomas will be the ochre jersey after that. So we know the winner, and it's Geraint Thomas who now takes the lead for Sky.
Channel 9's Wide World of Sports. There's the helicopter shot, and what a race we've had. What a stage we've had. The Hahn Super Dry, Stage 2, Mount Barker to Ross Trevor, and outstanding as I welcome Phil and Robbie to the presentation area. That was a great finish.
It was a great finish. You cannot be anything but impressed by the move by Geraint Thomas. I thought for a moment he was going to lose it when he got caught by those riders right on the line.
Well, I thought maybe there wasn't going to be enough cooperation between those riders to hang on in front of that 11-man group. But Geraint Thomas, he forced the move, he drove the break, he made sure they stayed clear, and he absolutely annihilated them in the sprint.
I was chatting with Paul just before, and it's a sign of the quality of the field, isn't it, that anyone can just pop up. He's an Olympic gold medalist as well.
All the names we suggested, well, Robbie was the best. I take my hat off. Moreno got in that move. We didn't see Gerrans, we didn't see Philippe Gilbert, and we didn't see Thomas de Gent. I thought they would have been in that move. But we saw an absolutely committed move by Geraint Thomas. I think he felt he'd gone too soon, but they got up to him and he held them off. I was with Geraint Thomas in Johannesburg in November, and he was enjoying the sun there and just riding around with groups of people I knew. And he said he's staying here for a while because he was enjoying the sun and training hard. He's put a lot of work in, Robbie, and there's the results. He's going to be a good Tour de France rider this year.
He's obviously put in the work, and he's concentrating on becoming a true road rider. I saw him at the beginning of the week, and I said to him, "Hey, G, how are you moving?" And bike riders tend to play their cards very, very close to their chest. And he said to me, I'm a bit surprised. I'm actually riding very, very well.
Wow.
Yeah.
For someone to say that, that's almost like coming and saying, I'll win
lies,
this thing.
don't they?
They do. They do.
You don't get 31 to 35 degrees often anywhere in Wales, so yeah.
You never see 35 degrees in Wales unless it's in Fahrenheit, and then you do. Yeah.
All right, race highlights, plenty of them. Let's have a look at them.
Okay. Well, it was a good race today, it most certainly was. We made our first ever start down from Mount Barker. Fairly short stage, I think on the open roads. This is the shortest stage we've ever had, 116.5 kilometres. Yes, we have a 90-kilometre race around the streets of Adelaide, but this was from place to place. And a nice gentle start. You always get the early attack, Rob. Why is that? Because the guys never win.
You get the early attack because they sometimes do. One of the guys who made it into today's breakaway of 4 men was Will Clark. Last year around Stirling, he did the impossible. He went on a lone break. Oh, he'll never win. And who was standing on the podium at the end of the day?
Absolutely.
Will Clark. He was exhausted. It blew him up for the rest of the year, but he did it.
Well, he went a day earlier this year because we go to Stirling tomorrow. But that was the attack by Calvin Watson, the 20-year-old who won the Jayco Herald Sun Tour just a couple of weekends ago. At 20 years of age, in fact on his 20th birthday. So he got away, then we got joined by the other riders. Guillaume Bonifond of Team AG2R was also in on the move, as we saw. And then came a training partner of Robbie McEwen's, Chris Yule Jensen. He got up there as well. And then the 4 were completed by the arrival of Will Clark. And that was it for the morning. Then all they have to do is stay clear till the finish.
Well, that's the thing. Those guys never got very much leeway. It was quite a short stage at 116 kilometres with a very nervous bunch, thinking about Corkscrew, not wanting to be surprised. This was the first day that was going to set up the general classification of this race.
It's the sprint into Echunga, came after 32 kilometres. And Will Clark, anxious to get the 3-second time bonus. I'm not sure it matters too much now after the stage finish, but at the time it was pretty important. And Will Clark stealing that one from Calvin Watson, and Bonifond just off the picture would have gone across in 3rd place. We're into Harndorf now, I think. Oh, we know we're still listed the peloton coming to. At this stage, they were a couple of minutes behind. No worry, everything was happy. They didn't have to worry about catching them just yet. They knew there was plenty of road lying in front of them.
It was as if the peloton had the breakaway on a string a little bit. They let them go out to over 2 minutes, pulled them back to a minute and a half, let them drift back to 2 again. No. They knew they were going to bring them back when they wanted them.
Robbie, you've passed through Harndorf many, many times when you've won some of your 12 stages of this race over the years gone by. They've always turned out superb crowds, haven't they?
They do, and even today, the race was only passing through there for a matter of a few minutes. They were out in their thousands as if it was a stage finish. It is a great place to ride through or arrive at during the Tour Down Under.
It's a German enclave. They understand the cycling back home in Germany for them. And now we're seeing the sprint here, the second sprint. This was at Oakbank, and this was at 72 kilometres covered. And it looked as though Will Clark was going to be outmanoeuvred. They all went too soon. They all had a rest at 250 kilometres. And then the final move came. It's a long, straight sprint. It's very difficult to see exactly where you're aiming at the finishing line. But at the end of the day, Will Clark waited for the move, took up the slipstream, and as he came up towards the line, he put it into top gear, and poor old Guillaume Bonifond finds he's no longer going to get 3 seconds time bonus. Will Clark is.
Well, I don't know what Will Clark is going to do with those 6 seconds he got out on the road today, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. It's a bit of cash for the team as well.
The field, though, at that point, they were just on 2 minutes. The field got their heads down. I thought that they was trying to set this up for Jürgen Rollins of the Lotto Belisol team. His teammates were driving at the front, and one of the eminent riders at that front was indeed the race leader, Andre Greipel, as they continued now onwards towards the finish. These are all roads you know well. Turned off back on Harndorf. We're heading out towards Woodside, Valhalla, and down towards Cudley Creek.
It really is beautiful riding out there, but that was really the calm before the storm. They hit the highest part of the course before starting the descent down the Gorge Road. So with the speed, it really picks up. The manoeuvring starts to get in position for the climb, and automatically then they drag the breakaway back, and it's all over.
A lot of work being done now by riders, particularly on Sky, so they knew what the Geraint Thomas plans were for sure as they started to take up the pacemaking. One by one, the riders imploded from the breakaway. We had an unfortunate little shunt. It was a bit of a bizarre crash, this. Keep your eye on the rider in white, and then wallop I'm pretty sure it was Calvin Watson. If it wasn't Calvin Watson, then it was Adam Phelan. But the figures 1 and 7 look very much alike on television.
And that's a real shame for Adam Phelan. He's been riding very well. He's a guy from Canberra. And of the under-23 national team, he actually set the fastest time up, Corkscrew, in training, and was really earmarking this stage. And unfortunately, it's ended like that.
Well, that was the move. It first of all came from George Bennett, who seemed to have it under control, and then on the hill itself, an absolute flyer from Geraint Thomas, the wearer of the white jersey in the Tour de France, as the best young rider on that occasion. He didn't hold it to the end, as Paul Sherwin mentioned. He gave it away when he was told to wait for his fallen teammate Bradley Wiggins. Anyway, these boys, once over the top, got themselves together. 4 riders coming together, 2 on the same team of Radio Shack, Geraint Thomas and Robbie McEwen's hot favourite Javier Moreno. It looked as though they were going to get caught, but these boys kept the pressure on, and as they came up, wait for the move at the back, he set all of his riders to the front. He gambled on the other 11 not bringing them. He went round them smoothly. This is a track rider expert. He's an Olympic champion and a world champion on the track, reigning. Now he's a road racing rider, and today he became a road racing champion as well. Hasn't won this title, hasn't won a road race since 2010, when he won the British Road Racing Championship. Now he can say he's a real roadman, Tim.
Yeah, and it was absolutely outstanding to watch. Of course, there he is, out on top, the winner, Geraint Thomas from Wales, a massive win. And the best of the Australians, well, you'd have to go right down there. Well, is there an Australian down there? No, we'd have to classify George Bennett as an Australian, but he's a New Zealander.
Yes, but you see, they got on and they split George Bennett, 10th at the end for George. They all came on very late, that group of 11 riders, and I have to say the Australians missed out pretty badly there. Now, Javier Moreno is now 2nd overall, just 5 seconds off Geraint Thomas. It's not a done deal at all. Hermans comes up into 3rd. Petriopoli has got up into 4th, so he's in those chasing 11 along with Tom Slagter. John Izaguirre, another rider from Euskadi, a Spanish Basque rider. They're threatening now, 6 and 7. What a difference one hill makes. These aren't sprinters anymore, are they, Robbie? These boys are going for the distance now, I think.
These are the real climbers, and I think this is the first Tour Down Under stage I can remember that we didn't have an Australian in the top 10.
Me
a real
too.
surprise, but what it does tell you is how important the World Tour teams and the foreign riders find this race. They really know it's a massive race on the world scale, and they want to win it. They want to be at the front. What I really liked about today's stage was Thomas's attack. He went up that hill. He was low down in the drops of the handlebars when he went away. He did everything right. He got the cohesion in the break. He took up the slack when they slowed down a little bit, and when he just laid off them there at the end, ran at them at about 350 out, crashed over the top of them, and just put such a big gap into them. He's laid an incredible foundation to win this race, and I honestly don't see him losing it.
You're right, that's a big comment from Robbie there about Geraint Thomas. We do claim the odd Kiwi from time to time when we're not doing very, very well, don't we? Russell Crowe, there's a few others that Australia have claimed over the course of time. All right, he'll be pretty happy at the moment, Geraint. He's going to have a new coloured shirt in just a tick. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Channel 9's Wide World of Sports, and we've had magic weather here in Adelaide and the Adelaide Hills, of course, today. The Hahn Superdry Stage 2, Mount Barker to Ross Trevor, 116.5 kilometres, and all the commentary, all of our discussions prior to it was that Corkscrew Hill was going to sort the men from the boys, and it was a Welshman who came out. That was a pretty poor accent, but he was the one that took off.
He took off and he left nothing to chance. Geraint Thomas winning the stage today. A brilliant ride. You can't take anything away from him. He is one of the most gifted cyclists in the world at whatever he chooses to do in cycling. And today I think he took a big step forward to a possible podium in the Tour de France this summer.
Well, that's what he's always been dreaming about. He wanted to do one goal before he started to dedicate himself to road racing side of the sport, and that was to ride the Olympic Games in London. He did that rather well and got himself a gold medal in the team pursuit. But I suppose today he's managed to get away from that track fat, as he calls it. He slimmed himself down. He trained in South Africa. He trained here very early on as well, and he came out of that pack, and it was a great way to see him come out of that pack.
Look, just in the last few minutes, one of the social riders came past and gave us a whisper that Simon Gerrans may have had a stomach bug, and obviously no one's going to tell us about that prior to a race, are they? They're not going to come out in an interview and say it. So Simon Gerrans, who probably was, from an Australian perspective, our best chance in a stage like this, was nowhere to be seen at the end, and that could well explain why he wasn't.
I think it must have been an epidemic, because there's no Australians in the top 10 in the race at the moment now, and that's, I think, never been unheard of, has never been heard of before. So I feel at the moment that we're going to have to see what the problem is with Simon Gerrans. Let's hope it's not too serious. Remember that Rowan Dennis, unfortunately, couldn't start this race, and he was the best young rider and King of the Mountains last year in this event because he contracted meningitis. So let's hope there's nothing too serious with Simon and he recovers to ride tomorrow.
Yeah, but I think the good thing is that with the sport of professional cycling, we can come up with as many favourites as we like. Simon Gerrans and Philippe Gilbert, we talked about them this morning. Then all of a sudden, a race like today can throw up a whole host of brand new names.
Here we go. Anyway, Geraint Thomas is now on stage to receive the accolades of the crowd here at the first ever finish in Rostrevor. What a high-speed charge it was away from the top of Corkscrew Hill. Congratulations all round. There is the stage presentation. Now there's a surprise, he's got a kangaroo. Well, I wonder, it's probably come from the wildlife park up by Cudley Creek.
Well, you guys were complaining a little bit earlier that the weather had maybe never been 31 degrees Celsius in Wales, but if you think about the running towards the finish, he was coming out of the valleys and going over the top of the hills, boyo.
He was riding very well.
He was, the smile on his face, I think it's a real compliment to the race, isn't it? And the evolution of this race over the 15 years, that there are no Australians on that leaderboard. It just gives an indication of how seriously it's taken out.
Absolutely right. That's a very good point, Tim. And that's how he did it. He waited, he got his 3 rivals in front of him, and then he just gave such a turn of speed. They couldn't match that track speed in those legs. You don't take away speed he's developed over the years since he was a champion at 16 years of age. Let's have a look at the result. Geraint Thomas, they've given everybody the same time. Well, that's what they've done. I would have thought be a few little extra spaces there myself. Moreno, Herman, Slagter, Wellens, Petriopoli, Jack Bauer is a very, very good Australian coming through now. Wilco Kelderman, a good young rider from Blanco. He's a Dutchman. In 8th place is Aguirre, and George Bennett's getting a 10th place finish. Not an Australian in the top 10.
Well, that's a bit of a surprise, though, Phil. But, you know, there's a lot more racing to be done in this bike race. It's a tough race around Stirling. We've got to go to the top of Ulwalanga Hill on Saturday. This race is far from over.
Yeah, and, of course, the overall standing. Robbie McEwen, we'll have a look at those in just a tick, but he had some interesting things to say.
Well, this is it coming out now to get the leader's jersey for the overall standings. And that is the ochre jersey from the shoulders of Andre Greipel, just as he lost it last year. This time he loses it again on day 2 this year, but it's gone to Geraint Thomas for the very first time.
And again, we talk about teamwork. Team Sky did a lot of work today. I spoke to C-Day Sutton very quickly just after the finish, one of the Australian rider on Team Sky, and he said, mate, we kept that one bloody quiet, didn't we?
He sure did. Well, Robbie McEwen said that he is now a hot favourite to win this tour. Where do you guys sit on that?
Well, as we're about to see the overall situation, you know, it is only 5 seconds the gap. It's still a race of seconds. It always is a race of seconds. Tomorrow we go to Stirling. There's 6 circuits there of a course which is very, very difficult indeed. And I think, you know, you'll find that Geraint Thomas will be on the defensive now. Will Clark won there last year. He was the hero of the crowds. This is not a done deal, Tim. No way.
But, I mean, just from an Australian point of view, you mentioned Chris Sutton. So we were on the podium, really. He helped him get there. All right, there's the overall.
Yeah, Moreno, which was Robbie McEwen's tip for the win. He wasn't far away. He's now up into 2nd place, 5 seconds back. Ben Herman's a very underrated Belgian rider indeed. He's at 7 seconds. Pietro Poli's been around a while. He's been here before. He's up there in 4th. Tom Slagter, watch out for him because he was the first to reach that breakaway of 4, and it's been rewarded with a 5th place in standings. It's not so much the names in the order, it's the times to the right of the picture, and the majority of these boys are 14 seconds back, as are the Australian riders. So I think at the moment the damage is very, very repairable.
Well, we talked about the People's Choice Classic being the hors d'oeuvre for the sprinters. Today was really only hors d'oeuvre for the climbers. That was one small climb down towards the end. It did a lot of damage. I have to say that the 6 circuits around Stirling could really, literally blow this race apart.
Yeah, hors d'oeuvre. We had the Loberthal pie, then we had today. Look, how hard are the Sky team going to have to work now to keep Geraint there in the ochre jersey and possibly be there for a historic win at the end of the week?
Look, this Sky team got first and second in the Tour de France. The first time a British cyclist has ever won the Tour de France, and we got the top 2 finishers in Paris. Neither of those riders are here, but this is a top World Tour team. Strength in depth. They've got 27 bike riders. They know how to work the race. They're strong. They got the man home today. Nobody hinted at it at all, and Paul, I think they're up for it tomorrow around Stirling.
They will be. They'll be put under pressure. But don't ever forget, Geraint Thomas is a man who's got a very big engine. He's ridden the Tour de France in the past. As we said earlier, he has worn the white jersey as the best young rider in that competition, although he had to throw it away for his teammate Bradley Wiggins. He gave up his chance of riding the Tour de France last year for only one reason, and that's because the Olympic Games were at home in Great Britain.
Yep, they are cheering in Cardiff today. A good win for Geraint Thomas.
Paul said Great Britain, not England. We'd have been shot there, wouldn't we?
Yeah, there's no way we'd do that. All right, this is Channel 9's Wide World of Sports. Of course, the Hahn Superdry Stage 2 has been cycled and won. We'll be back with more after this. There they are, the beautiful buildings and sites of Adelaide, the city of churches. This is the Santos Tour Down Under on a beautiful bluebird day, 31 to 33 degrees. It's been difficult conditions for our cyclists. They'll all sleep well tonight, no rocking to sleep. And the Hahn Superdry Stage 2 was won by Geraint Thomas from Wales. And we will have a look at the way he did it again, because it was so strategic. All his guys worked so hard for him, and then he went boom on the corkscrew.
Well, this is the corkscrew. This is how it all started, an attack, and a brilliant attack, I have to say, by the young George Bennett from New Zealand. Fresh off his silver medal in the New Zealand Road Racing Championships. He's a good climber. He's another one of these boys going places. He rides for the American Radio Shack team, but I tell you, when he was caught by Geraint Thomas, who had to take that corner very wide to go over the top of him, George didn't have the answer.
Well, actually, Geraint Thomas took the best line around that, because when you go on the inside of these hairpin bends on corkscrew, the gradients are as much as 20%, and that's how he managed initially to get the gap on the younger Kiwi. The Kiwi made a bit of a recovery here, but Geraint Thomas was having nothing of it at all. He looked over his shoulder and kicked again.
Yeah, I thought he had made it there, but he was already fighting in the distance there. Moreno was trying to reach them, and I think it was just about now, as we heard earlier from Geraint Thomas, he was asking himself, had he made the move too early, because those legs were now beginning to burn.
The interesting thing is about Team Sky, they've got 2 or 3 different cards that they can play, because throughout the whole of the day we were thinking this is for Edvald Bosenhagen, who's a good climber and a good descender himself. They kept this man right in the pack. They kept it close to their hearts, didn't tell anybody at all about it until he came out and laid his cards on the table.
And Phil, in commentary at this point, you and Robbie and Paul were all saying he's riding like he's on the track. That's how quick he's going up the hill.
He's pedaling a low gear, he's at full power, he's making this hill look rather flat. The club cyclists who turned out to watch this, they were very curious to watch the professionals ride their famous training ground road, and they would be absolutely stunned by the way this rider just rode it up in the saddle and just made it look rather easy.
You know, the thing is, as we said, this man is a rider we've been following for a number of years as he's progressed up through the ranks. His background has been on the track. I have to say, the Brits really have been really naughty towards the Australians, because it was the Australian Institute for Sport came up with this recipe. You breed a bunch of really good track riders, move them across to the road, and that's exactly what the British cycling have done.
You steal everything from us, there's no question. But
when we do it better once we've stolen.
Oh, of course. But when we came down to the finish, you mentioned how you saw him in Africa, Phil, and it was a bit like that Tiger just at the back, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Those guys in front of me, he slowed it all down, and he said, OK, here's my go.
But look at the crowd here, the top of Corks. I was worried how they were going to control this crowd up here, because it's a very narrow road, but the crowd are in fantastic cheering form and very, very organised indeed. There's the Skoda banner, so he's got the maximum points. This is the steepest climb so far. He's the obvious leader now of the Skoda King of the Mountains. Of course, he's taken the orange jersey, the ochre jersey of race leader, so it will go to second place overall in the competition, and I think that'll be George Bennett. We talk about how hard it is to get up corkscrew. How difficult, Paul, to come down?
You have to take an awful lot of risk, because it's a very technical descent. It's not as if it's a straight down descent at 80, 90 kilometers an hour. It's going around these corners, and especially on a bright day like today, you go in and out of these bright spots and dark spots, and sometimes there can can be a pothole around the corner, and we've seen many riders come unstuck in a moment like this. But when the other riders joined him, I thought it's all over now for Geraint Thomas, because he's used too much energy to try and get a time advantage.
He just looked around to see who was with him, but the problem was he had to gamble here on those 11 riders who were given the same time, not catching up. He got the 3 boys in front of him, and then his kick from the standing start almost was enormous. This was an Andre Greipel, a renaissance of a sprinter, wasn't it?
But the thing is, you must never forget that he's got that background, the pedigree coming from track racing. He's got the instinct of knowing when to jump and how to jump, and when he got that gap, there was no chance they were going to come back into his slipstream.
And I'll tell you what, Tim, I don't care what the judges have done, there should be separate time gaps on the result for that finish.
We'll have to wait and see if any changes are made on that, I suppose, Paul. But how happy was he off camera when you spoke to him?
He was very happy. This is what he's been thinking about for an awful long time. He did make a big sacrifice. Any rider who doesn't ride in the Tour de France leaves a big chunk out of their year, but it was a special year for him last year, and I think he's now happy and glad to be back racing on the road.
Good on him. He was absolutely outstanding. All right, we'll be back here to wrap it all up. The Hahn Superdry Stage 2 of the Santos Down Under. You're on Channel 9's Wide World of Sport. Channel 9's Wide World of Sports and our helicopter crew have done a wonderful job over the course of the week so far as we go from the Adelaide Hills down to the start-finish line. And it was pretty warm today, and hottest of them all was Geraint Thomas. He has got the ochre jersey, and he'll take that into tomorrow's Stage 3, which is the bikeexchange.com.au Stage 3 from Unley to Stirling, and it's a longie.
Unley is one of our towns that's been part of this race since its inception. The street party is very famous. Everybody goes down there to watch the race, but once they leave Unley, then we have pretty much a straight ride. We go over Eagle on the Hill. That's the only categorised Skoda climb of the day. Then we continue onto the circuit at Stirling, and then, Paul, we have 6 laps on the circuit of Stirling, and that's going to make it very hard. Let's start at the beginning, though. That's where we are. In South Australia. Where else could we be? Unley is literally from the hotel. Oh, it's about a 5-minute bike ride, I suspect, to the start tomorrow. There's Mount Barker, 6.2 kilometres down the road, into the Powerade hydration station, and then, Paul, to the circuit.
That's when it gets very difficult, because that circuit around Stirling, you do it once, it's hard. Twice, it's harder. But when you're going to do that 6 times, I could see this being a very vicious stage.
This is the most they've ever done. We started with 3, then we thought we'd try 4, 5. Now we're doing 6, and believe me, it is a really tough course. It is far from flat, and it goes all the way uphill to the finish. Will Clark was the winner there last year, and he got a terrific ovation because all the dignitaries in Stirling have made this race their own in that town, and they have a really good time and give the riders a great welcome.
And I think we're going to see, well, first of all, a huge crowd will turn out because they're going to get a chance
Guaranteed.
to see the race go by 6 times. But we'll see a huge race as well, because everyone will like to see if there's any chance of putting pressure on Team Sky and Geraint Thomas.
Yeah, we're getting wonderful crowds right across every street that is ridden down, but we're